Hey, I'm Cory from Crimson Shadows, and you're listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast.
Brutally Delicious!
Hey, you're listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast. I'm Bruce.
And I'm Chris from Canada, eh?
Hey.
And I'm Dale from the Midwest.
And it's funny that you're from Canada because we have a Canadian band on with us today. We've got Crimson Shadows.
Ah.
North of the border. So
good old Canadian kids.
Yeah, this is a pretty heavy band. I kind of dig them. I know Dale was digging them. He was talking about them earlier. So
oh, hell yeah.
We've got Cory. We're going to go ahead and get him on the line and see where we end up.
So
Cory.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, Cory. Bruce Moore here. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too, man.
This is my partner, Chris.
Oh, you got your video on? I'll turn my video on. There we go. I'm
now
rocking.
We get to see two Canadians.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
We've also got one of our listeners with us today, Dale. Dale, say hi.
Yeah, and I guess the two Americans don't have video.
No.
They don't really know. It's kind of like the rest of the country. They don't really know what they're doing. Hey!
Nice.
I live here, so I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, he's a defector, so he's not really.
I'm an expat. Yeah. So,
oh man,
where are you located?
Right now I'm in Mississauga, just outside Toronto.
Cool. I was reading the bio and it says where the mountains meet the sea, and I was like, oh, they're from Vancouver, and then I was like, oh no, it says they're from Toronto. So I was like, I don't know where you're from.
Yeah, actually, a couple of our members live downtown Toronto. I actually live about 45 minutes north in Caledon, like in the middle of farm fields and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where our kind of home base is, our studio and jam space and all that.
How are you coping these days? You staying safe?
Yeah. I work in AV, so that kind of got shut down about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And I managed to pick up some other work in a warehouse just with one of my old jobs. They needed some help. So at least I'm still working and surviving right now.
Yeah.
Could use a couple of weeks off to finish all our pre-production, but
right.
But now I got to pay the bills. Probably within the next week or so, I'll be out of work. So more time to do music, I guess.
Yeah.
Hey, we always got to look at with the silver lining, right?
Yeah, got a positive spin.
So we'll just jump right in. So your new record, it's going to be out on Napalm. Is it out already, or is it coming out shortly?
Well, we just released an EP called The Resurrection. It came out on March 13th.
Okay, so just about a week ago.
Yeah. Friday passed, so like about a week and a half ago. So we just released that on Napalm, and we are preparing to hit the studio to release our next full length. So it's been written for a little bit. We're just kind of fine tuning the lyrics. We had a different vocalist in, Paul Ablaze from Blackguard.
I know Paul. I know Paul very well.
Yeah, he's a really good friend of ours, and when Jimmy kind of stepped down in 2015, early 2016. Paul stepped in. We had some shows with him, started writing the record. So Paul wrote I'd say about 70% of the lyrics. And then we're kind of just finishing up the remainder of that and re-recording, redoing the pre-production for Jimmy's vocals as Jimmy returned to the band. We got to a point where our lives, like we're all in our early mid 30s, and like he wanted to get married, and the tour life was just taking a toll on his personal life a little too much. So yeah, and at the time we weren't making very much money on the road. We were coming home broke. And I know that after our last tour, the Only See Archers 2015, I probably spent like 6 months catching up on visa bills and phone bills, and had my phone cut off for a little bit, and so it got very strenuous, but now we're all kind of in a good place and comfortable, so we can continue and get this new record out. We actually had a meeting not long ago about it, and this new material I'm just so passionate about, and I love the way that we went about writing it, and kind of gets back to our older style of things, but still, I don't know if you know much of our first record, Glory on the Battlefield, but it is more that Dragon Force kind of esque, like extended solos and
Right.
pretty like chaotic compared to our 2014 album, which I won't say that we were rushed to write, but we did have some deadlines that Napalm put on us as a new signing band. So we kind of just like went with stuff that was I wouldn't say more simple, but a lot more just like structured. So we wanted to get out of that and write something that was a little more complex and maybe not as easy to digest, but something that will give our musician listeners a little more to think about and be able to hold on to.
So here's a question. How does a Canadian metal band grab the attention of Napalm?
Well, we were part of the Vaughan Metal Battle Canada. So we did that. We won the Canadian one, and we went to Vaughan, and I guess we impressed the people over there, and we ended up taking first place in the Vaughan battle internationally. So that caught the eye of a lot of European labels. Right after we got home, we knew part of the prize was there would be a record contract from Nuclear Blast on the table.
Yep.
So we started talks with that. But we actually flew from Vaughan out to Winnipeg and started a Canadian tour. So we hit the road as soon as we were done Vaughan. When we knew we were playing, we had to cancel the first, I think, 4 or 5 dates of our tour. The band we were touring with met us in Winnipeg and picked us up from the airport. We were on the road for about 3 weeks after that. So while we were on the road, I'm trying to figure out logistics and everything like that, and got in touch with our previous manager, Velda, who was managing Battlecross at the time, and I believe she still does. So I was good friends with the Battlecross guys, and I got in touch with her. We had talks about me playing drums for Battlecross a little bit loosely, so we had already a conversation. Got her involved, and she kind of, instead of just like signing with Nuclear Blast right away, we kind of looked at our options. She was very passionate about the music, saw something great happening, and so she got in touch with Napalm and several other labels. When eventually Nuclear Blast, we decided not to go with, and they weren't really budging on any of our like coordinating with us in a way that we felt was going to benefit the band.
Yeah.
As a young independent band as we were, we wanted a label that was going to push us and really want to work with us and give us maybe slightly better deal than what Nuclear Blast was offering. So we decided to go with Napalm in the end. They're very passionate about the music from the beginning. We've loved working with our rep, Sebastian. He's been great. And even after all these years of kind of radio silence from us, because it's been several years since we've released anything, he was still very excited to put out our last EP, The Resurrection. And now we're going to start talks about the full length and how we're going to go about that.
Nice.
So that's kind of the rundown of the whole situation. It was a very strange time for us. Finally, like, we were a band for, I think, 8 or 9 years at that point. So finally having some label contracts on the table were kind of, we knew what we wanted, but at the same time it was very, very stressful, and trying to tour at the same time, and we're writing new material, and it's just I'm glad that it all kind of worked out the way it did. But yeah. that's kind of how we got connected with Napalm, was through our manager Velda. So
we do a lot of work with those guys, and they've always been. I know they're really passionate. You mentioned that, but they've always been pretty straightforward and legit. I think they have some great acts on their lineup, so that's great.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's just filled with amazing bands that I grew up listening to, and like being on the same label as a band like Hammerfall.
Yeah.
Was like a massive influence to all of us in the beginning, and continues to be. Like, all their latest records have been phenomenal. So just like, and like the list goes on with the amount of bands that they have on there. So including these guys, Unleash the Archers, right there.
Oh,
Good friends of ours. And yeah, I can't believe it took them as long as it did to get signed. But I know that they were battling hard and didn't want to take a deal that they weren't really happy with. So
they tour their asses off, that band. They tour nonstop. It's crazy.
And it was from the beginning. The first time they ever toured across Canada, we played with them in Toronto.
Oh, cool.
And I somewhere I have some footage of that. I'm gonna try to find it and get it online, of their first Toronto gig. But their drummer actually broke his back in a car accident a couple weeks before that tour started. And they found a fill-in, and they did it like all the way from Vancouver across Canada and back. And like from that moment, playing with them, we've been close friends. And every time they come around, we do a couple shows. And like, we are supposed to play with them on March 16th at the Opera House in Toronto, but they had to cancel the Dragon Force tour they're on, and the whole shit storm that ensued after that.
Yeah, I mean,
they've been around for a while, right? Because they were in my cookbook like 10 years ago.
Oh yeah. I think it was 2011 we first played with them. I want to say 2011, 2012, somewhere around there, and they were a band probably for at least like 2 or 3 years before that. So yeah, it's been over a decade.
Yeah.
Nice.
When I lived in Vancouver, I remember when they started playing and people were like, "Oh my god, this band is killer!" You know, it's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, they're great, and even through all the member changes, like they've only strengthened as a band. So, like they're just phenomenal. I can't wait to hear their new record.
So, are you guys recording your own record, or are you going to a studio working with a producer? How's that working?
We're going to try to do things as efficiently as possible with our own work schedules. So we all kind of have little studio setups at home. Myself and my brother Ryan, who's the guitar player. So like we're going to try to record as much of it, especially like the stringed instruments, the guitars and bass, will all be done in his studio, and then we'll probably just like go to a proper studio to reamp everything to get the tones that we want.
Yeah.
We've never really I'd really like to work with a producer on it, but financially, it just I don't think it's going to work for this record. And since everything's done and we're pretty happy with it, like every week we kind of come up with slightly new mixes and stuff. So before we hit the studio, we're gonna actually sit down and kind of solidify everything we're doing. It seems like there's new ideas popping up all the time.
What are you guys doing for drums? Are you recording real drums, or are you using like an E-kit? How are you approaching that?
No, we will record real drums. Our new bass player, Alex Snape, is actually a recording engineer. He runs his own studio. I have the space in my house, so we're kind of renovating that at the moment, and probably going to record all the drums there.
Nice.
Yeah, we've looked at a couple different producers, and we've been in talks with a couple different guys. One being Christian Donaldson at the Grid Studios in Montreal. He's done some phenomenal, more death metal stuff. But over the last couple of years, we've talked to him. He's like, I really want to do something more power metal. So kind of like elaborate on his what he's accomplished. So we're going to continue talks with that in the coming weeks, and hopefully get that set in stone, because I'd love to work with him. He's incredible, and kind of put most of our money into the mixing stages, since like nowadays home studios, you can get the quality you need out of that as long as the performance is there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then vocals, we have a couple different small studios that we have in mind to do that. So we're kind of like piecing it all together in different places to see what works logistically and financially for us, so that we're not absolutely crippled as a band once this thing's actually out, and we can do some touring and festivals and stuff like that. So
nice.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of touring plans you have in preparation, or actually not preparation? What kind of touring plans do you have in support of the record? Sorry, I'm fucked up.
Well, right now we're really just focusing on getting the record done, out. There's a lot that goes into it as far as like artwork and merch and everything like that, and really trying to work with Napalm on some PR ideas and marketing that way. So that's our main focus right now. It probably won't be out until closer to the end of the year, we're hoping.
Okay.
So once we get once we get into the studio at the very least, then we're going to start talks on touring and what we physically can do with all the members and everything like that. Like we love to play festivals and everything. For one, it doesn't take a whole lot of time out of our schedule. We're able to work our regular jobs and still pay our bills that way. But as far as like full tours, it's we'd be looking at something that is more on the bigger scale if we're gonna do anything. I don't think that we're really gonna do those independent tours, headlining or anything like that. But you know, if Dragon Force calls up and is like, "Hey, we want you to support us," like we're not.
That's a no-brainer, right?
You know, yeah, we've been friends with those guys. They kind of like were the kickstart to this whole band. I think it was before we even started the band. Myself, my brother, and our other guitar player, Greg, were in one project in the Brampton scene, which is no longer exists. But and then our vocalist Jimmy was playing in a different band, and we were all friends. So me, Ryan, and Jimmy drove to Quebec City to see Dragon Force's first North American show with Camelot at La Capitale, I believe. And we ended up hanging out with Sam and ZP and a lot of the guys, Fred from Dragon Force that night. We've been buddies ever since. And then that's when, I think it was on the way home from that show, that long drive from Quebec City, that we kind of decided like, all right, we're going to take Jimmy's death metal vocals and then write some extreme power metal over it.
Nice.
So yeah, they were a massive influence on us. Hence why our new EP has a cover of Blackfire, which was at that time the song they always opened with. I think there was like 4 or 5 tours we saw them on. They would always open with Blackfire. We knew exactly what was coming until I think it was like 2 or 3 albums later, Ultra Beatdown. Then they kind of started switching things up. But that song always like kind of stuck with us, which is why we decided to do a cover of it.
Gotcha. All right, so I've got one more, and then I'll let Dale ask a couple. But nowadays, with all this craziness going on outside, are you having to rethink how you interact with your fans and how you do things? Or I know a lot of bands are doing like live streams and all these different kinds of things to interact. You guys have any kind of plan, or have you given it any thought yet?
We've definitely given it a lot of thought. We were actually planning on doing some live streaming even before all this came down, about doing something to interact with our fan base that wasn't necessarily doing live shows, because that's only really getting to a certain amount of our fans, like in that one city. And since we don't really have a whole lot of time to be touring all over the place, we can do a live stream and get to fans all over the world. So we already had that mindset to do that. And then with this happening, we really wanted to make something happen. So I'm in talks with a couple different guys, because we want to do it in a way that is professional. We don't want to just set up our cell phone in our jam space and everything's distorted. And yeah, so I know there's a couple venues. I know there's one in Ottawa at least, and I'm hoping more in Toronto start to do it. That you can go in and with a small film crew and run all the audio through the venue's website. I know the Brass Monkey in Ottawa has done that for a few bands where they have their website all set up and everything set up on their end for live streaming. So the band it's just so easy. You just have to come in, set up, and play your set and everything, and then they take care of all the back end because there's a lot that goes into it to get it functioning properly. So we're kind of working on that to try to get something going, and hopefully in the coming weeks we come up with something that's going to work for all of us. Really, right now it's even scary just getting together to have a rehearsal because
Right.
we're all supposed to stay at home. So I don't know if that's how viable it's going to be quickly, or if we might have to wait until this is all kind of cleared up to do something.
Gotcha.
But we'll see. We're gonna have some talks in the next day or so about what we're gonna do moving forward. So with
It's
that,
crazy, right? Like you got to stay 2 meters apart. For you Yankees, that's just over 2 yards.
Yeah, well, this is an American show. Hey, Dale, what do you got? Dale?
I don't think Dale's here.
Dale disappeared.
Dale's gone. That's okay.
Dale is gone.
Yeah.
So,
I don't
Chris, you got anything else?
I don't know, but it's nice to hear a nice, friendly Canadian voice down here, and stay safe
Oh,
up
yeah?
there, man.
All right, sounds good, guys. Thanks a
Thank you.
lot.